My name's Rachel, and just a little bit about mental health. I grew up in a family where talking about mental health is very much taboo. Asian upbringing, very much, strict sort of setting. Expressing how you feel to your parents is like the worst thing you can do. So I've gotten very good at building a poker face over my life, over the course of my life. And during uni, I actually was toying between studying commerce and psych. But again, having Asian parents, psychology, what's that? You're not a doctor. So I chose commerce. And during that time, I still read a lot of articles about psychology and I self diagnosed myself to a bunch of things. So when I moved into my adult life, I knew that I had issues, but because I was so self-aware, I was in complete denial. So it was only until 2017 when I was really struggling with really bad panic attacks. Then I finally got a clinical diagnosis of depression and anxiety on the severe side, and that was like a wake-up call for me to do something about it.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. What about you, Darren?
I'm fine. No, I had what am I, 38? So I got to about 34 years old, and I had a lifetime. It turns out from the age of 3 or 4, well 4 or 5, I don't know. My earliest memory. That when I got to 34 years old, I had a bit of a breakdown. I was in public and I was just like, something's wrong. I was saying to Rachel before, I was like, one of the key things that happened to me was that I used to look around at people and I was like, excuse me, I'm going to swear, but why the fuck is everyone so happy? Like, why is everyone so happy? Like, why aren't I? So I had a good friend of mine, and I was lucky enough to have a good friend that reached out to me and said, you have to speak to someone. And he basically gave me an ultimatum that he can't see me like this anymore, and unless I see someone, and I did. I made the call, he gave me the number, and I made the call, and I've been seeing him ever since. But it's where I am now to where I was back then. It's apples and pears. Like it's completely different, and yeah, that's my history.
So with that, Darren, we'll keep you there with your first question, which is, so you're currently seeing a therapist. Could you kindly share with us something from your view of what SafeWatch helps you with today?
Yeah, of course. There's a frustration about sessions that I have. Sorry, there's a frustration about sessions that I have, not because of the psychologist, but because I found it hard to articulate things. I mean, I see my therapist every week, but I find it hard to articulate what I'm going through on a Thursday, what I was experiencing on the previous Friday, for example. Even though it was only 5 or 6 days ago, the therapist is saying, what were you going through during this time? And that was very difficult because I'm trying to put myself in those situations where I don't want to put myself in that situation. So having a tool where I can literally pull out my phone, press a couple buttons, and write a few key words to help me jog my memory and articulate to my therapist what I was going through that time makes my sessions a lot more effective. And the fact that he can see that prior to our session double downs on that, which is fantastic as well.
Well done, thank you. Same question to you, Rachel. How does SafeWatch help you today?
I spoke about denial earlier. That's still very much true in my life. So I think logging my feelings every day, just making it very raw and knowing that nobody can see it, actually allowed me to be really honest with myself. I think when you're leading a team or you're seeing clients every day, you put on a front and you tell people that you're okay. And I realized that I actually carried that through my personal life, so much so my husband would sometimes tell me, like, you're very much robotic when and I know that's when you're breaking down. So when you look at the app and there are like 5 days in a row that are red, it's like, you know what, like, that's the truth, that's how I feel. So right now, I'm not seeing a therapist, but I think to Darren's point, if I was seeing a therapist, I can just say, look, this is the raw truth. This is how I've been going. In this moment now, when I speak to you, I feel great, but the past 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks has just been horrible. And also, just being able to log like a sentence or two and knowing that nobody can hack in or see it, it has changed my perspective on how I actually process my thoughts.
Fantastic, thanks. Darren, what are some of the advantages of the app and using the app and why you use that over, as Shane said, there's over 15,000 apps in the App Store that you could use. Why SafeWatch?
I just found out that it's private. No. The thing is, I was thinking about the app when Shane asked me to speak up here today, and anyone with mental hardship that knows there are dark times, and historically I've spoken to things like organisations like Beyond Blue, the Black Dog Institute, but the thing is, they're not. Every time I speak to them, I mean, it's been, 3 or 4 times, well, not 3 or 4 times, I know exactly, it's 4 times. There's a high level that you need to go through before you get help. Having my lovely wife, some of my close friends on my app at 11:30, like Shane said, and being able to reach them and them having a full view of what you're going through, the history of what you're going through. Like Rachel said, 5 days of not going well. Okay, let me just check in on Darren. These are the things that I find the absolute. You don't get that. I can't get that anywhere else. I use other mental health apps, and this is. I'm not getting paid, but this is by far the best.
Well done, thank you. Good answer too, thanks. And Rachel, what about you? What are some of the advantages of using the app for you, and what's a standout point for you using the app?
Again, I think it's just that visual representation. My day-to-day work, I rely on data all the time, but it's funny when you don't have data on yourself, you can convince yourself that you're okay. And I'm really good at that. So when I look at the app and there's a whole data of truth, and even if I skip a few days, I can fill in the blanks, because if day 5 was like, red, and then day 8 is suddenly like mid, I can guess that those days weren't that great. So I think just having that visual representation, building on my self-awareness, self-acceptance, and breaking down that denial. And I do plan on seeing a therapist soon. I'm just finding the right person. When I get to that stage, I can show them, look, it just shortens down like 30 minutes of your preamble down to maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And that way I can actually focus on the behavioral therapy. So I think that's the game changer for me.
Well done. Guys, I think you would all agree it takes a lot of courage to sit up here and talk about that. Don't you think it's amazing, it's touching? And I think I'm going to throw another question in that isn't there, because I think it's important. Guys, if there is anyone in the room here that is silently suffering, 10 seconds each, what advice would you give them around the SafeWatch app and SafeWatch in the community and the village here, that because chances are in this room there's probably some people silently suffering. What would each of you give a tip to each before we finish this little bit of this night?
Go into the App Store first of all, download the app, and then part of the journey that you take with the app is finding. Now it sounds horrible, but finding the people that you know will be there for you. Not to say that people don't want to be there for you. It's people that I've had my wife, my therapist, my best friend see me at my darkest time, and I know that if I call them at 11:30 at night, they'll be there. And be open and honest with what you're sharing, and I find with things like this is that I try journaling, for example, But the problem is with journaling, it's not live time. You do it at the end of the day, you do it at the end of the week, and and the thing is, the reason I hate journaling is because I have to think about what I was like when I was not well. And if you're happy, you don't want to go back there. So it's hard to journal. So take the literally 15 seconds to get the app, to get your phone out and be honest with it, because the only person that's going to benefit is you. So finding the right people and being honest with yourself and with the app, and even though it's the hardest things in the world sometimes, just do it because it's worth it and you're worth it.
What great advice. Thank you. Thank you. Rachel, in closure, what advice would you give someone that could be silently suffering tonight around the app and SafeWatch?
I think mental health is very much tied to spirituality. And number one, I would say, I'm just taking myself back to when I have a panic attack, because that's the hardest rock bottom I've had. And the hardest thing that I've practiced is practicing gratitude in the moment where you've hit rock bottom. And sometimes, and I can picture the worst panic attack I had. I had a panic attack in front of the shoe cabinet. And I remember my therapist telling me, just observe what's around you. When you can't breathe, if none of the breathing technique is working, just look around you. So I literally looked at my shoes and I was like, blue shoes, black shoes, heels, thongs, and then it snapped me out of it. But I think when you go deeper into that technique, you're actually just taking a step away from what's consuming you, the darkness, right? We do live in a very dark world. When you focus on what you have, what is actually solid, tangible, the fact that you're breathing is a blessing. You know, the fact that you are having a panic attack in a strange way is actually a confirmation that you're alive. So that's my first advice. The second advice I would say is, I think, finding a mentor. You know, and sometimes a mentor is not someone older than you. It could be someone younger than you, but somebody that can inspire you and empower you. And I love to surround myself with younger people, and sometimes they mentor me on life. I think Gen Z are incredibly good at just enjoying the simple things. They mentor me on life. I have people like Shane. He's not officially my mentor, but I've seen the way he treats his team, and I take so much inspiration from that. But both of them is centered around gratitude and counting everything as a blessing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a big round of applause to Darren and Rachel? And congratulations to both of you. Well done, guys.